And greetings, friends. Today I have the pleasure to introduce to you on this podcast my book, The Legendary Life of Ernest Jeshurum Giro. So it will be as if you were hearing my audiobook of this book. I'm going to be doing 2 chapters of the book every day so you can continue to listen to my story. I really want to tell you that it's a very fabulous and interesting story indeed, what I got to tell you on this podcast. So please join me. The New Radio Church of God and the Plain and Simple Truth Ministries present the Messenger of the Lord with Apostle Jeshurum, preaching the gospel of the good news of the kingdom of God and informing you about world events in the light of Bible prophecy and preparing the way for the return of Jesus Christ. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Apostle Jeshurum. The legendary life of Ernest Jeshurum Giro, an autobiography written by Ernest J. Giro. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any way, shape, or form, or by any other means without the prior written permission of the publisher, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical reviews and certain other non-commercial uses permitted by copyright law. ISBN number 979855666281. Table of Contents. About the author. Introduction. Chapter 1. My childhood years and beyond. My teenage years. The high school disco years. The young adult years. My wild and crazy days. My first experience with demons. The Chronicles of Life with Marie. Chapter 2, the best loves of my life. Chapter 3, the other legendary women in my life. Chapter 4, the coolest jobs I ever had. Chapter 5, been there, done that. Chapter 6, the legendary skills of a very well-gifted and talented Cuban artist. Chapter 7, the high calling, confirmation, commission and declaration of a true servant of God. Chapter 8, the good, the bad, and the ugly side of me. A pattern of good works, the testimony of a true servant of God. Chapter 9, my incredible life in Texas. The incredible dreams I had sometimes in Texas. My crazy, outrageous, and out-of-this-world dreams in Texas. The writing on the cell. Chapter 10, born to be a king in the kingdom of God. Chapter 11, freedom at last. Free from the bondage of sin, free from serfdom and the slavery of the rat race. Author's last word. 22 years of doing God's holy will. The memory of the just is blessed. About the author. Ernest Jeshurum Giro, a versatile wordsmith and writer, has spent decades honing his craft and delving into the profound intricacies of human existence. As an author, prophet, and speaker, he has dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of the human experience and illuminating the path toward the truth of God's Word, the Bible, as well as spiritual and personal growth and fulfillment. With an insatiable curiosity for the human condition and a deep-rooted empathy for the struggles and triumphs of everyday life, Jeshurum has become a leading voice in the religious realm of biblical prophecy and emotional intelligence and self-awareness as inspiring and successful mentor at wisdom.com. Born in Havana, Cuba, and raised in the bustling metropolis of Miami, Jeshurum's early years were marked by an insatiable thirst for knowledge and a passion for storytelling. His formative experiences, ranging from encounters with diverse cultures during his teen years to intimate conversations with individuals from all walks of life, shaped his profound knowledge and understanding of the complexities of the human mind and human nature. Having earned a liberal arts degree in public speaking and oratory from Ambassador College, Jeshurum's academic journey was complemented by his relentless pursuit of wisdom through spiritual leadership and a continual inquiry of the whys of life. His voracious appetite for biblical knowledge and understanding, and his engagement with a spectrum of thought-provoking subjects and topics through various articles which have enriched and informed his readers with a very unique perspective and with a biblical approach to exploring the depths of the human condition today. Introduction. In a world teeming with lies, uncertainty, complexity, and rapid change, and filled with fictional and made-up and exaggerated stories and fake news of famous personalities around the world, the need for a true story of a man that really and truly belongs in the pages of history books would serve as a great inspiration to many to know about an extraordinary person and how he has been able to navigate the intricacies of modern life has never been more acute. This book is an exploration of the profound life of a legendary individual seeking clarity amidst the chaos, drawing upon a wealth of research and personal anecdotes. It endeavors to shed light on the nuanced challenges of our time, from the impact of an erroneous theology that continues to deceive and cause doubt on human relationships, to the evolving dynamics of global politics. Through the lens of history and the lens of the present, this book aims to provoke thought and inspire action, inviting readers to embark on a transformative journey of self-discovery and spiritual understanding. It is a call to engage with the world with a heightened sense of awareness and empathy, encouraging readers to embrace the power of introspection and critical thinking in shaping through his actions an incredible story, a more conscious and compassionate future. Join me as we delve into the life and experiences of an amazing and astonishing individual who is extremely talented and gifted. J.D. Edwards, Publishing Editor. The Legendary Life of Ernest Jeshurum Giro, an Autobiography by Ernest J. Giro. Chapter 1. My Childhood Years and Beyond. I was born in Havana, Cuba on November 7th of 1960 in a very quaint small town called Santiago de Las Vegas and what is now called Reparto del Nuevo Santiago. It was a very lovely and charming little place located between the cities of Rincón, Bejucal, Calabazar, Boyeros, and Marianao. I enjoyed very much as a child going to the countryside with my step-granddad, Lázaro, in order to get fruits and to place traps and snares for all kinds and types of colorful birds in order to bring them back with us and place them in the huge bird cage we had in our patio. I also enjoyed going to the beautiful beaches of Havana like El Náutico, Marianao, and exploring the beautiful surrounding neighborhoods around my block, which was called Calle Tercera or 3rd Street. Most of my childhood activities that I truly enjoyed also were flying a kite, playing games with the kids on my block like hopscotch and hide and seek. I was never really attracted to baseball games and other similar sports. On weekends, I would enjoy visiting my mom, who used to live in Old Havana near El Malecón, and she would take me on a boat ride to the city of Regla in a small passenger boat called La Lanchita de Regla, which would take you across the bay to the small town of Regla. As I write this, I am listening to an old cassette tape from my dad with the music of Benny Moré, who was known particularly as El Bárbaro del Ritmo, or the King of Cuban Rhythm, during the glory days of Cuban music. I have many nostalgic and beautiful memories of my early life in Havana as a kid. Even with the pressures and life stresses of communism and the cruel and despotic oppression of Jesuit dictator Fidel Castro, we still had a pretty nice and tolerable life, I guess. I mean, I always had food on the table since my granddad had connections with farmers and so on in the country farms, and my family there provided me with all the basic needs. A very notable and memorable event that I would never forget, which to me seemed very hilarious and funny now, and even at the time was that our school motto was, Seremos como el Che. We will be like el Che. And one day I just decided to say instead, Comeremos mierda como el Che. We will eat shit like el Che. And oh boy, all hell broke loose. Because of that, and the school administrator then threatened me to sending me to a reform school, and I was even in danger of being forbidden from leaving the country. So my grandparents interceded and reassured the school administration that they would take me to psychotherapy evaluation and that I would be under psychiatric mental observation as well, and so they left me off the hook. I was planning to leave to the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area in Florida with my mom and my siblings and some special Pan Am flights that Castro had arranged for children and their mothers at the time from Varadero to Florida. I was 10 at the time and it was 1971. My teenage years. Arriving at Fort Lauderdale Airport in Florida was very exciting indeed. It was the first time in my life I saw vending machines and soda cans were just 10 cents at the time. You can tell how times have changed since then. The downside of my new life in America was that at first we had to stay in my mom's ex and father of my half-brother Lazaro's new girlfriend's home, and that was a bit stressful as you can imagine for my mom. So soon after, my Uncle Fellow, who had recently come from Spain and was living in North Bergen, New Jersey, invited us to come and to stay at his own apartment there. But there were frictions and clashes with his girlfriend due to this, so we had to again move back to Florida, and we lived in Miami till I was 13. Because my dad and my grandparents had arrived in the U.S. by then from Spain, and they were able to settle with my uncle's help in the nice town of Union City in Jersey, they then invited me to come over and live with them instead. I was going to elementary school at the time and became quite popular in the class choir with my boys, and I fell head over heels in love with this Cuban long-haired blonde girl with green eyes called Dianelis. And she never liked me nor accepted me, so that was truly devastating for me. But as you know, life moves on, and so I got interested in learning judo, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, and karate during this time, and by watching those Bruce Lee films, I taught myself Jeet Kune Do, Lee's own particular fighting style, and became quite an expert with the nunchakis by the age of 14. The high school disco years. The time to experience high school went rather well. They weren't too rough with me at my initiation as a freshman, since I already knew most of the juniors and seniors of Union Hill High School, which was the school I attended at the time. I knew these guys from going to local parties and dances. They were mostly Cubans, so we got along really well. The high school girls were really awesome and titillatingly sexy and lovely back then. So I became an excellent sort of Fred Astaire at dances with my unique and very innovative dancing style of the hustle. I also began collecting an impressive vinyl record collection of various hit songs of disco and soul music from 1973 to 1975, and bought me a Marantz amplifier, a mixer and 2 turntables, and began playing music as a local DJ at local party events, and began rubbing shoulders with the best local DJs at the time: Aurelio Martin, Palillo, Cascudo, Peter Reyes, Havana Soul, and Roy Dominguez, Dan Roy Royce, who were my best friends in high school and beyond. Tony DJ and others. I began my spinning DJ gig as Ernie G. Disco. At school, I wasn't too interested in most of the subjects like algebra, physical education, etc. My main thing was music, art, and girls. I would usually spend most of the time just relaxing with friends at the auditorium's balcony, hiding from the school's disciplinarian, Mr. Gligor, who would usually shout, "Study halls downstairs, not in the balcony!" But I would just simply manage to hang around there, as you can see in the pic in the next page. I hate to admit I wasn't much of a very studious person back then. I just wanted to have fun, that's all. One of my most cherished and fondest high school memories was that every time I would go to a local party or dance, I would always manage to dance slow with this dazzling, gorgeous, lovely blonde that would be usually wearing a long black dress and high heels, and as we danced, she would usually caress me like no other girl did, and we had a real deep connection, I believe, and to this day, I still remember her. She's the kind of girl you would never forget. Oh, and I also remember an excellent time at a dance at San Rocco's, where I was able to dance a slow song, also with Dianelis, the girl I fell in love with at Washington Elementary. She was wearing a long red dress and looked so stunning with her long blonde hair and beautiful green eyes. Dianelis Moro was her full name. That was a beautiful encounter that I will never forget. The young adult years. These are the years right after high school and after getting my high school GED diploma, and when I had to seriously think about college and some sort of career path to take. They were very stressful times and yet also very nice years of my life indeed, from 1979 to 1981. In other words, from when I was just 19 till I became 21. It was really and truly a sort of roller coaster ride. Speaking of carnival rides, I now remember a time where I was at Palisades Park and had gotten into one of those crazy rides, and the ride operator would yell, "Shall we go faster?" And everyone was shouting, "Yes, yeah!" except me, who kept saying, "No, please, stop, stop!" I was almost ready to throw up and vomit. It reminds me of one of those Bean's antics and nerdy behavior in one of his most popular reruns, where he rides a carnival ride. That was very hilarious indeed. I began my real working career in life then, working as a gas attendant for a Shell gas station in Jersey. Then I worked as a sales clerk at an auto parts in Miami. Then sometime after that I went looking for work downtown and got a job as a stock boy in a ladies' shoe store called Butler's. And to someone like me who adores and loves women's feet, that was like being in heaven. I also moonlighted as a club DJ at night under the name of TNT Music, and I had an enviable record collection then and two big and huge speakers with the words TNT over them in white, two Technics turntables, a real nice mixer, and a very powerful amp. I also would sing a couple of songs with the band when they were playing, since they loved my voice. It was a time that I would also go to various nightclubs in Miami like Lions Lounge, Mon Petit, Les Violins, and other popular ones there. There was a girl that was a bit on the chubby side that I knew and would see in most of them, right on famous Calle 8 Southwest 8th Street, that as soon as she would see me, she would do the "come here" signal with her finger and would whisper in my ear, "Let's have sex now." And we would end up in a local motel having a great time. Those were my wild and crazy days. My wild and crazy days. Those were the days of the cocaine drug cartels in Miami, as you can probably recall from the Miami Vice TV series. Not even while being in high school I was attracted to smoking pot nor snorting coke. As I mentioned before, my only natural high, as a song from Blaston says, was the girls and my disco music. I remember one time in Miami during those days that I still didn't have a car, and I told my brother-in-law at the time if he could take me to a swingers club that was way south, because I was very horny young man during that time, and he said he would take me. What I didn't know at the time is that this guy, whose name was Adolfo, was some sort of delinquent. So we got there, I went inside and checked the scene, had a few drinks, but nothing happened. While in the meantime, Adolfo stayed outside. Unbeknownst to me, he was trying to open the trunks of all the cars in the parking lot there. So I decided to go to the car and wait for Adolfo there for him to show up, and next thing I see is a huge light at the window. As I was sitting there in the passenger seat, it was a flashlight of a cop who handcuffed me in front of his patrol car, and as I looked inside, there was Adolfo sitting there in the back seat, also being handcuffed. The cop told me that they had caught Adolfo running around the parking lot with a briefcase in his hands, and since they couldn't prove that I was his accomplice, he decided to take me in and charge me with loitering and prowling, and that's how we both ended in jail that night. That was the first time in my life I ever had problems with the law. So next day my sister bailed us out and the judge let us go. Another interesting time where I almost lost my life was on a weekday that I decided to go to a local club that I would frequent often on Calle 8 early in the evening, and I happened to be the only one in the parking lot before coming in. And as I went in, the place, it was empty, And the bartenders were standing with their arms crossed, and the music was playing loud, so I decided to leave right away. And when I got out, I see this car next to mine, and a suspicious guy with his foot resting on the wall right in front of my car, and another guy sitting at the trunk of it, reading some papers. So I thought nothing of it, and as I walked to open the door of my car, the guy against the wall sprang up toward me, pointing a gun at my chest, and I just froze, and immediately the guy sitting at the trunk of the car said to him, "Don't do nothing to him, let him go, and let's get out of here, 'cause this is not the man we're looking for." So as I was still in a daze, and my heart was racing, they got in the car and took off. That was a close one, wasn't it? I guess they were looking for some drug dealer to kill. So ever since that time, I never went to nightclubs on weekday evenings, and always on Saturday nights, like around 11 p.m. Then there was a night that I was at the club, and we all heard shots fired outside the club, and everyone went outside, and there was a dead man on the floor, and a nice and busty chubby girl grabbed my arm and asked me, "Could you please take me to the body to see if it is someone that I know?" And I was looking at her big boobs, and I said, "Sure, why not?" And I escorted her there. Then the cops came and had us all move back as they did their thing. So me and this girl began to get acquainted, and she told me that she had come to the club with a friend that was heavily drunk already and was throwing up in the ladies' restroom. So she asked me to help her carry her to her car so she could take her home with her. So as a gentleman I am, I said sure, and did just that. But while carrying this girl into her car, I somehow lost one of my contact lenses from one eye, and since we already were building up a sort of chemistry, she whispered in my ear to please follow her to her home so we can get to know each other more intimately. As I drove behind her, I noticed she was driving really fast, and my vision became sort of blurry, so as she made an abrupt turn to the left around one of those light poles, I tried to do the same, and I hit the car against the pole, and the light bulb fell on the trunk of my car due to the hard impact. So I simply left the car there like that and walked to the direction this girl took, and it was a residential area, and I saw her white car parked on the lawn of a house. I knocked on her door, and she opened and told me she was concerned and asked me what had happened to me. So I explained to her about the accident and immediately asked her for a phone to call my mom, since it was her car I was driving, and told my mom all that had happened, and she told me not to worry, that she would call the cops and tell them her car was stolen, and that way I wouldn't get in trouble. So it turned out that the drunken girl was still in this girl's car, and she asked me to please remove her from the car and bring her into the house to her bedroom, since she had fallen asleep. So again I carried her in my arms and brought her to this girl's bed. Afterwards, I spent a couple of hours talking to this girl whose name was Maria, who had changed into a more comfortable and very sexy attire by then, and we were enjoying each other's company with lots of kissing, cuddling, and foreplay, and she placed her sexy feet on my face and asked me to lick her toes and soles. So I said to her, "Your wish is my delight," and proceeded to lick her succulent feet. As soon as her friend woke up, she came out and wanted to go home, so Maria told me to wait for a bit so she could ride her home, which was nearby, she said. So I simply waited patiently as she took off. In just a few minutes she came back and kissed me and hugged me and grabbed my hand and took me to her room. Needless to say, we spent the whole night making love. This girl had an awesome body, even though she was a bit on the chubby side, but with her huge boobs she was way much better looking than my Calle Ocho nightclub friend. On another occasion, I was hired as a DJ for a home party by this Colombian hot-looking chick who told me she was in the clothing industry, but I suspected that she probably was involved in the drug cartel because of all the luxury and things I saw around her home, but I didn't really mind that because I just wanted to get her nice and hot sexy body in bed somehow. So something very interesting happened when the party was over, and she sat down with me to chat a bit, and every time she would step up to go to the bathroom, I tried successfully to put a Spanish fly in her drink. But the reality was that I became the one to be very dizzy with all those drinks, so the plan sort of backfired on me. She told me that she would have sex with me if I did her a small favor while wearing a sexy baby doll lingerie and putting her arms around my neck and getting very close to my lips. She asked me if I could marry her mom, who was an illegal alien at the time, so she could get the green card from me, being I was a U.S. citizen. So in my stupor I agreed, and I guess I was drooling to get into bed with her that night. I was 19 at the time, and her mom was 45 years old, so we went with her to see a notary public and seal the deal. But a few days after this, I told an attorney friend of mine what had transpired and what I had done, and he told me, "Ernie, you're crazy. You had no idea what you have done. So let me fix this for you immediately." So he arranged for a court meeting with a judge friend of his and told him all about the details, and after the judge heard him, he decided to make a court decision on the matter and told me that being that I was a sort of very naive young man who was seduced by this woman to conspire into this, he would just give me a slap on the wrist by ordering an annulment of marriage and order the immediate deportation of the girl's mom back to Honduras, where she was born. And that was the end of that. Remember, these were the days that judges were decent, more lenient and fair, and would show compassion and mercy on young people. Today they will probably throw the book at you and send you to filthy jail in the blink of an eye. Of course, I never did mention this to anyone, not even to Maria, but I decided to share this story on this book to show you how silly and stupid we can really be when we are young adults. My first experience with demons. I soon began dating more frequently and having sex more often with Maria, and she was the one who introduced me to the Ouija board. What we didn't know back then is that by doing this we were opening doors to the spirit world and to satanic forces of darkness. Many nights, while we slept after having had great and fantastic sex, we began hearing footsteps on the roof of the house, and in the darkness, as I would awake and grab a bat to go outside and see who was at the roof, I could see shadows of ugly faces at the bedroom door and hear weird screeching sounds and other unnatural noises in her house. So I had decided to kind of stay away from her for a while, because her place really gave me the creeps. I was living at my mom's place then. One night, I saw her at the club we had met at. She was sitting down with another woman next to her, and she gave me the cold shoulder and didn't want nothing to do with me. So I got real upset and went out to the parking lot and looked for her car. Once I found it, I got a screwdriver which I would keep in the glove compartment of the car, and very carefully watching that no one would see me, I took off the license plate of her car and placed it inside the glove compartment along with the screwdriver, and immediately took off from that place to my mom's house. I did this as a sort of prank to her because of her attitude towards me that night. And lo and behold, I'm sleeping in my room with my pajamas on, and my mom knocks on the door, and I open up and I see Maria standing there shouting at me with tears in her eyes and very upset. "What did you do with my license plate?" she yelled. "I got stopped by the police and they told me I had no license plate." So I said, "I'm sorry, sweet, I was a very bad boy. I just wanted to do a prank on you, so I took off your plate from the car, and it is in the glove compartment of my mom's car, so let me get it for you." So I gave her the plate, we hugged and we kissed, and she took me home and we had superb sex. I was working also at Kinney Shoes during this time as well, at the only mall on Biscayne Boulevard, as an assistant manager, and then after a while ended up being transferred to the store on Burr Road at Southwest 40th Street. During this time I met with a Cuban friend from when I used to work at Angel Auto Parts, who was selling his classic blue with white interiors for Galaxy 500 convertible for a real great and cheap price, and I bought it. The car was in a fantastic shape and condition, and that would become my first official car. So after a while I decided that I was tired of Maria's sex manipulations and her occult practices and with just everything about Miami, and decided to go back to Jersey and live with my grandparents there for a while. So I rode my convertible all the way there without any problems. The Chronicles of Life with Marie. The minute I had set foot on Union City, New Jersey, I began reaching out for my friends and contacts there, and I was able to land a job with Tom McCann Shoes as an assistant manager. It was during this time that I had met my first wife and true love of my life, Marie. It was during a hot night of summer in Jersey that I decided to go to this club called Fire and Ice. So I stepped out of my classic convertible, went inside and ordered a drink. I remember this day as if it were yesterday. since they were playing this song by Edwin Starr called Contact. And as I looked across the floor to the other bar, there I caught a nice glance at this girl dressed in white with dark hair and a birthmark atop her lovely lips, who simply took my breath away, and in King Solomon's own words, had ravished my heart with one look of her eyes. Song of Solomon 4 verse 9. So I finished my drink and walked up to her and began chatting with her, and I asked her what she was drinking, and she said, a Harvey Wallbanger. So I told her, sounds good, can I try it? And she gave it to me and said, keep it, I'll get another one. And I could feel the chemistry was just starting between us. So we both danced the night away, and she became a bit tipsy with the drink, so we went outside to my car with the top down, and we kissed, and she got sort of knocked out and placed her head on my chest as if asleep. So I told her that I would drive her home, and she could leave her car there, and we could come to pick it up the next morning, and she agreed. I then took her home to Park Avenue in North Bergen, where she lived, and carried her in my arms to her basement apartment. We both exchanged phone numbers and kissed again, and I left feeling like I had just met the girl of my dreams, very excited and just hopeful for a new love in my life. This was really true love at first sight. As we began dating more and more often, I would enjoy picking her up and seeing her running out of her place barefoot with heels in her hands and her hair still moist and wet from the shower. She was so elegantly sexy and sweet, she had me sort of mesmerized most of the time. We would take romantic walks along Boulevard East, holding hands. And I remember one day she let go of my hand and ran crying, and I approached her and held her in my arms and asked her, Marie, darling, what's wrong? And she replied, I'm sorry, Ernie, I just don't know about this and continuing this. I mean, you and I both being so young, and I feel you're a bit immature for me, and I need a strong and mature man in my life. And when I heard that, I immediately said to her, just wait here a moment. Let me get something in the car, and you will see how mature I am. So I ran to the car that happened to be parked just a few feet from us, and I grabbed the marriage annulment papers from my previous marriage to the illegal alien woman from Honduras that I had placed in my glove compartment, and ran back to her and showed them to her and said, see, I already have been married before, so believe me, I'm a very mature man and very responsible indeed. I work hard, and you also get me very hard with your lovely barefoot feet along. So what do you say, baby? Don't you think we can make beautiful music together? She looked at me with a deep loving stare, and I wiped her tears with my fingers, and we kissed passionately just like the first time. And then she hugged me and squeezed me and said to me, yes, Ernie, I believe in you and in your love for me, and I love you, Ernie. Those words were like music to my ears. And we both embraced in a sweet loving embrace and went home and had great sex. A few weeks later, we took a weekend trip to Cape May and took the ferry there and had a marvelous, great time. We also had dinner and a limo take us to Central Park's Tavern on the Green one night. We just had some of the most awesome times of our life together, and I decided one night that we had dinner at Binghamton's, which was also known as a boat in Jersey, to take her down to the deck under the moon after dinner, and I proposed to her to marry me there, and she said yes. We both got married in May of 1982 in a Protestant church due to the fact that we were attending church on Sundays back then, and we would go to a particular evangelical place called Gospel Tabernacle in North Bergen. Life with Marie in Jersey was truly delightful, peaceful, mesmerizing, heavenly, and like something out of this world. It was like one of those love stories that you can only find in movies. The first months of marriage were a continued honeymoon. We would travel to the Caribbean to places like Antigua, Bermuda, Curacao, Dominica, and Puerto Rico. Our honeymoon in Antigua was extremely painful and hilarious at the same time, because I would go snorkeling in the morning and would end up with my back so burned, and making love at night would be so painful that I would scream like a maniac, and we could only wonder what the hotel staff would think who were around at night. Just like the famous song says, we had the time of our lives together. At first, in the beginning, I was always shy of going to the bathroom to do a number 2 in front of her, so I would say things to her like, honey, gee, I forgot to grab a Coke on the way home, and I can't live without it. Could you please go get one for me? Of course, honey, she would reply and walk out the door. That way, I could sit on the toilet in peace. Silly, right? But later on I became more at ease with it, as it is natural so to be. We then both moved to Miami in 1984, and we were attending the Worldwide Church of God then. In Miami, life was a bit stressful and competitive, but we also made really well in our marriage there, eating at nice restaurants and enjoying the beaches and so on there, since we both had great jobs at the time. But then the devil got in the way and really ruined it for us. And I will tell you more about it and more of Marie in upcoming chapters. The fact is that after my first marriage, I was always surrounded by women. I was a sort of Cuban James Bond in that sense, as you can note in the MP3 album that I recently recorded below, which is readily available at RiverNation.com/MajesticG. My new album, my new MP3 album, Always Surrounded by Beauties, is available there. Chapter 2, The Best Loves of My Life. I remember one of my 10 lessons when I was taking up oratory and public speaking was the last one, as a matter of fact, and that was a heart-to-heart speech. It's a type of speech where you simply put out your heart without inhibitions, without rehearsing or preparation, and simply share with others a very heartwarming and emotional story about your life and your lessons learned, your experiences, and most amazing, unique, incredible, inspiring, and touching, most wonderful moments ever lived. And so I begin this new Heart-to-Heart Chapter 2 with a bit of an excerpt from my first book, Memoirs Secretas de un Ex-Don Juan, Secret Memoirs of an Ex-Don Juan. I will be sharing with you my fantastic and beautiful loving experiences in my life with the babes which I consider the best loves of my life. These are the women who I married and or had the greatest romantic experience with, the ones that truly made a long-lasting impression and impact in my life. Well, I'm a firm believer in first things first. So I decided to start with my first wife, Marie. As I mentioned in the previous chapter, I met Marie in a New Jersey club one night called Fire and Ice, and I must say it was truly a case of love at first sight. I vividly remember they were playing that tune by Edwin Starr, Eye to Eye Contact, as we began staring at each other, and I remember being sort of mesmerized by her ravishing beauty and her warm smile as I began to nervously approach her to ask her to dance. Well, after a few dances and a couple of drinks, we both went out to the car and we began kissing and making out, and that truly felt to me like being in heaven. She was a bit tipsy, so I offered to drive her home since I was pretty much very alert, and promised her to come back the next day to the club's parking lot to pick up her car with her. I explained to her I used to be a long-time DJ and knew the club owners fairly well, so she had nothing to worry about. Well, needless to say, that was the start of a very wonderful and long-lasting romance, which inevitably led to marriage later on. One of the things that really impressed me about Marie was her sexiness. She would come out of her place every time we had a date, with her hair still wet, wearing a nice dress, and still with her shoes in hand. She would approach me with a loving and tender kiss in a very sweet embrace, and would ask me to put on her shoes on her lovely and beautiful sexy feet. That truly blew my mind about her. I never had quite a girl like that before. I remember one time we were at the club just sitting down having a drink and talking, and out of the blue she just grabbed my face and gave me an out-of-this-world kiss suddenly. Needless to say, it left me just simply breathless. Ours really was one of those Hollywood type of romances that you only watch in movies. We took exotic vacations to the Caribbean, we had good and perfect jobs, and we both found God and Jesus together, and we're having, just like the old 80s song says, the times of our lives. Unfortunately, she had a problem with her pregnancies, and they all ended up into miscarriages. And so we never had kids. This made the marriage a bit hoary and tense at times on her part, and after 7 long years of bliss, it ended up in divorce, and I never saw her again ever since. Sometime after my divorce with Marie, I met Margaret. She was a very cute, short and petite Cuban girl that my brother introduced me to, since she was his girlfriend's best friend, and we went to shoot pool one night and we hit it off exquisitely. She was 10 years younger than me. I was 35 then. But the sex was just out of this world. She gave me a beeper so she could send me cute, sexy, and loving messages all the time. In those days, a cell phone was not so readily and publicly available yet. I remember one time we had a breakup after a difficult quarrel over some jealousy nonsense discussion we had because she thought I was flirting with the ladies at work. I was working for Celebrity Cruises at the time as a reservations agent, and she would sometimes come by to my work on my lunch break to bring a homemade sandwich, which I found to be rather cute and fascinating on her part, and it showed me real love from her. Anyhow, we had broken up on the days leading up to my birthday, and I was very sad and depressed about it, and then my birthday came, and I felt terrible thinking how would I spend it without her. So lo and behold, I hear a knock on my door, and when I opened it, she was standing right there with a nice loving smile on her face, and wouldn't let me even speak. She pressed her finger on my lips and said to me, "Happy birthday, baby. Now I want you to follow my instructions quietly and allow me to blindfold you, okay?" So I gladly agreed, wondering what sort of surprise she had for me. She got me into her car blindfolded with one of her scarves that had lovely scent and aroma from the perfume she always wore, and proceeded to drive me to some place. When we got there, I could hear the loud sound of a window air conditioning unit, and she was leading me by the hand inside a room, and she took off my blindfold, and I was inside a motel room staring at the bedpost full of balloons and a big sign that read, "Happy birthday, baby." And she was wearing this seductive and skimpy black lingerie outfit, and immediately took me on top of the bed, and we then had outrageous sex that night. I will never ever forget that as long as I live, because I had no other girl do that to me in 63 years of my life. The next days, as I went to the bathroom to shower, I noticed she had written with red lipstick on the mirror the following message: "I love you, Ernie." That truly blew my mind. I decided to compensate her efforts by waking up one day at 5 a.m. in the morning and driving to a local radio station in Miami where I knew the radio show hosts personally, and waited for them to arrive and convince them to dedicate a special song for her as soon as they got into the studio cabin. You see, I knew she would listen to their show on her way to work every morning, so with great delight they did, and she was in awe and very surprised indeed. Margaret was a 25-year-old petite and short girl with an awesome body, with very nice and sexy small feet, nice thighs, and in tip-top shape with long dark hair, a very kind and affectionate personality, beautiful black shoulder-length hair, and I believe the sweetest thing that ever walked this earth. The nurse that stole my heart. One of the greatest loves I had was a very torrid romance and passionate loving affair with a beautiful, lovely nurse with dark long hair I met in Quito while going through my divorce process with my second wife, Ernest, and living in Ecuador. Her name was Ana Lucia. That's why even to this day I'm fairly attracted to girls named Anne, Anna, or Lucia. I don't know why, but it just is that way. It is what it is, as I say. And I believe this girl did really make an imprint in my heart and mind since the very moment we met. She was the sweetest thing I ever seen, so loving, so tender, so understanding and kind, and very much in love with me. I could tell by the way she would get excited to see me, and would just run to me and throw her arms around me and say something like, "Someone please give me water to drink, my cubanito is here." I would go see her at the local hospital she used to work at every day after work, and she would get so excited to see me, and that was to me just so incredible and wonderful, to say the least. I was staying at a very nice hotel in the center of the city back then called Hotel Bella Vista. Was separated from my wife, and one night I had arranged for us to have a nice candlelit dinner at the rooftop of the hotel overlooking the city, since the hotel was on a hill and the window of my room, which was on the last floor of the building, was adjacent to the rooftop, and all we had to do was crawl out through it, and so we did. I remember setting up a nice table from the hotel's restaurant, which I borrowed, and 2 chairs. You see, after a certain hour of the evening, the hotel crew and staff would go home, and the few guests staying there, like me, we all had the hotel to ourselves. We would cook and whip up nice dishes at night in the hotel kitchen. Those were some of the perks of living in Ecuador. And the front desk clerk was a super cool dude and would allow us to do just about anything there. That was really nice of him. So anyway, I had bought Ana Lucia a nice open back sexy wine colored night dress with a slit on the side, and she wore it barefoot with me on the rooftop, and after the pasta dinner I had cooked for her, we had a wonderful night of love and amazing sex. That was unlike anything I had done before. And of course, I had many, many romantic escapades with her after that, but that night I would never, ever forget. My legendary conquests and this hotel. One day I was working teaching English at a local adult language center, and one of my students there, whose name was Jackie, and was a very sexy short dark-haired girl, wanted to have a bite for lunch with me, so I took her to the hotel to eat since they had a good restaurant there that was strategically located right behind the wall of the front desk. So if you came in the hotel, you would see the front desk clerk, but you couldn't see the restaurant right behind the wall. Well, it turned out that this day after I had lunch with Jackie and eventually afterwards took her to my room and we had great sex, once she left, the front desk clerk, who was my friend, told me that while I was eating in the restaurant with this girl, a woman came in with a nurse's attire and asked him, "Is Ernie here?" To what he replied, "No, I'm sorry, he isn't." And as she was going to walk out of the door, this other woman opened the door for her, and when she went inside, she asked the front desk clerk, "Is Ernie here?" And he gave her the same reply he gave the nurse, which was Ana Lucia. The other woman that came looking for me was another lover I had on the side, who was a Spanish teacher called Patricia Vallejo. She was very cute and sexy also, and short and sweet. He kept telling me, "Wow, Ernie, I couldn't believe it. It was something that I haven't seen in a movie, not in all the years I've been working at this hotel in the front desk. You know what it is to see two different women walk in by an interval of minutes asking for you? Not even Bond 007 had this happen to him." So as incredible as that sounds, in fact, two lovely women that I usually had intimacy with came looking for me to have sex, and I was behind the front desk wall having lunch with my student Jackie. That was really amazing, wasn't it? So all these women were some of the best loves in my life, but I'm certain and sure that the greatest love is yet to come, especially now that there are so many chicks available, to an amazing and incredible lack of real men around the world, especially in the Baltic countries like Estonia, Latvia, the Czech Republic, Russia, Lithuania, and many others. And this is that scripture fulfilled found in Isaiah 4 verse 1. "And in that day, the days we're living in now, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, We will eat our own bread, we will bring home the bacon, and wear our own apparel, only let us be called by thy last name, to take away our reproach and loneliness." So now I would like to play for you, before I leave, my new song, Always Surrounded by Beauties. Please enjoy.
I'm always surrounded by beauties. Whether I am in my house, whether I am in the park, whether I am at the club, or any other site, I'm always surrounded by beauties. Whether I am at work, or just somewhere taking a walk, whether I am at the beach or somewhere nice I can be, I'm always surrounded by beauties. Every day and every night, I'm always surrounded by every day and every night, always surrounded by brunette semblance, by redheads and girls that are fun, girls with luscious, sexy bodies, girls that have everything you can want and everything a man desires. They're so hot and sexy. Big breasted girls, big body girls, Nice thighs and sexy legs and feet. They all are really a nice and sexy treat. I'm always surrounded by beauties. 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 Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm a fortunate guy. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm always having a great time, a great time. They all caress me, they all kiss me, they all embrace me in their arms. I make love with them all the time, and I hold them in my arms, and I feel like I'm in paradise. Always surrounded by beauties. Always surrounded by beauties. Always surrounded by beauties. Always surrounded by beauties. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm a fortunate guy. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm always having a great time, a great time. I'm always surrounded by beauties. 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 Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm a fortunate guy. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm always having a great time. Girls with blue eyes, girls with green eyes, girls with dark eyes, girls that are simply nice, girls that are thin and have everything, girls that are chubby and short, girls that are tall, wealthy and old, girls that are plumpy and small. Girls that speak all sorts of languages and are experts in love, yes they are. I'm always surrounded by beauties, always surrounded by beauties, always surrounded by beauties, always surrounded by beauties, always surrounded by beauties. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm a fortunate guy. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm always having a great time, simply an awesome great time. They all caress me, they all kiss me, they all embrace me in their arms. I make love with them all the time, and I hold them in my arms, and I feel like I'm in paradise. I just love them all.
By the way, folks, this is a song that I wrote and I published in the 90s, and it was during that time that I was backsliding with all these women, from God's church. And so right now I'm always surrounded by my wife and by my cute and wonderful kitty, Agatha. So I decided to relaunch it in my new album, and my new MP3 album, and my music website. That's all. You can check it out at www.rivernation.com/majesticg, that is majestic with a K.com. And so, my friends, tomorrow I will continue with this book. Until next time, this is Apostle Jeshurum saying goodbye, friends.
You have heard the messenger of the Lord with Apostle Jeshurum, preparing the way for the return of Jesus Christ. For more information on this podcast and this program, you may write us by email at Jeshurum, Apostle of the Lord, at AOL.com. Again, that is Jeshurum, Jeshurum, Apostle of the Lord, at AOL.com. This podcast was sponsored by the New Radio Church of God and the Plain and Simple Truth Ministries, and by the free will offerings, tithes, and donations of those who are listeners of this podcast and are supporters of this great work of God. The preceding program has been a Plain and Simple Truth Ministries presentation.